Bullseye.
Hey guys, this is, as most of you know, King Kegger. Today I'm breaking away from the usual topic. There is no music to be played. I'm not playing any video games today. I actually have a little bit of another rant. Not very uncommon. I got pretty heated last night, and actually it's been eating at me all day long today while I was at work. I always watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart on Comedy Central. Last night I watched, and it was basically an hour-long episode of poor shaming. Now, I'm not necessarily, well, I guess technically I would not be within the government, the definition as far as IRS is concerned with being poor. They consider being poor to actually be a household of four. Let's see. A household of four making less than $22,350 a year. So to break it down, that's pretty much everyone's getting $5,500 to live on for the entirety of a year, and that is all expenses paid, and just that, just the bare essentials: electricity, heat, which I guess could be electric or gas depending on where you live. May even be on like a boiler system, but electricity, we'll say gas, heat, water, garbage, your actual rent, groceries, and then that pretty well covers your essentials, with the exception of, you've got to have clothes. You're going to wear clothes out. You're going to wear shoes out. $5,500 for one person is not a whole hell of a lot. To put things into perspective, I have a pretty good paying job where I live. I live in Ohio, which most of you guys know. I live in Ohio. We don't necessarily have the highest pay rate as far as a standardized scale. I believe the minimum here is $8 an hour. But we live right on the Ohio-Indiana line. Indiana, theirs is $7.85. So, there's only a 15-cent variance, but there is no variance. And actually, I think it's more expensive. If I was to cross state line and try to live there, it would actually be more expensive on a monthly basis. But ballpark range, I make about, well, I can't say make, I take home about $1,340 a month. That's after I've paid taxes to Uncle Sam, taxes to state of Ohio, to the county, the school district, and paid all my insurance, because that is now a law that we have to pay for health insurance, even though I haven't been to a doctor probably in 10 years. I don't mind paying for dental out of pocket or vision out of pocket so I can go get contacts, but I don't really need to go to a doctor. I haven't been to a hospital or a doctor in over 10 years. But if I broke down my monthly expenses, and I'm going by my own, there is actually an average for Columbus, Ohio. They are showing the average expenses. Well, I guess the cost of living is what it would actually be. The average cost of living per month would be $2,386. So, I can't live in Columbus. Just the average rent in Columbus for a one-bedroom apartment of, let's see, one bedroom at 255 square feet. That is not very big. Would run you $914.29 is the average. That's 75% of my paycheck for the entire month would go just into rent. I wouldn't be able to cover for, I'd be living in a fucking apartment with no electric, no heat, no water, no garbage. But even just breaking my own down, I pay about on average, I've been just doing a little bit of math here because I got so heated over this that I'm got to get it off my chest. I'm telling somebody. I'm telling you, YouTube. My basic living expenses for electricity, gas, water, trash, sewage is $231 a month. That's all those combined. My rent for a one-bedroom house is $450. Then on average for groceries and, I eat lunch. I work, 20 miles from here. I eat lunch like a drive-through, whatever. $375 a month on food. And then I'm not going to be in here with nothing to do while I'm home. So my cable, my internet, and my cell phone run about $210 a month combined. So in a month, my total expenses are $1,266 out of the $1,340 that I make. So I can save $80. But I didn't factor in fuel. I know that I use, on average, $80 a month in fuel. So out of what I make, which is pretty good money for the area, I can save $8 a month. But I'm not technically poor, as far as Uncle Sam's considered. There are certain things that make it more difficult, especially someone my age. I'm 23 years old. My age that is not married and does not have kids. I barely scrape by, working paycheck to paycheck. And I end up, like I said, only having about $8 over the top for the entirety of the month. Pay ungodly taxes all year round because I'm single and have zero dependents. I will eventually get it back. Last year, well, I guess this past year, I ended up getting back about 1 month's worth of pay from the state, the local tax, and federal all combined. Was pretty close to about $1,300. So I had that and ended up using it pretty quickly because, that's not really a whole hell of a lot of money. But it's because I do not qualify for any tax credits. None. Nothing. Live in my own house by myself. Can't get a head of household because I'm not old enough. Not married. Don't have kids. There's no write-offs there. Apparently you have to be a certain age. I think it's 26. I think it is 26. To be able to qualify for an earned income credit. All this is just a tax credit showing that you worked and made X amount of money. I have been working since I was 14. I went and got a work permit so I could work early. Worked at like a little mom and pop shop on a work permit for 2 years. Went to a corporate store. Worked for Jack's Aquarium and Pets for about 4 years. So the whole time, and this is full time. So like in high school, I worked from 2:30 in the afternoon or 3 o'clock. Let's say something in there. Whenever I could get there from school, 3 o'clock until 9:30 every night. Sundays I would work 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And Saturdays it would depend. I would either work from about 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 or 4, or I would work from like noon to 9:30, something like that. So I don't have a problem with working. I've worked a full-time job for 10 years. I have been out of high school for 5 years. Well, it's been for 6 years. Sorry. Been out of school for 6 years. But I've worked for 10. Working is not a problem for me. Work can do a lot of great things for you. For one, it's nice to make an honest living. Two, I don't have to just sit at home all the time with nothing to do and no money to go do anything. And 3, I feel like an actual member of society. However, there are some people that are not as fortunate. I am one that I've got great people skills. I'm easy to work with. I'm a quick learner. Um, I have never went through a job interview and not gotten a job. There have been some that I've interviewed for and decided I didn't want to take the job, but I've never been through and not been offered a job. So, however, there are some people that are not as fortunate that either A, may lack the people skills, or they may not have the qualifications for the job. Now, you know, people think, well, anyone can get a job at a McDonald's. Wrong. Not everyone can get a job at McDonald's. Not everyone can get a job at Walmart. Not everyone can get a job at Kmart, Kroger, any sort of retail environment. There are plenty of people that either fall under the statistic of could not make it in high school, had to drop out. There are more places now that won't hire you with only having a GED than places that will hire you if you only have a GED. Unless you have a high school diploma, you are pretty much fucked. And even if you have a high school diploma, let's say that you ran into trouble at a young age. You dropped out of high school and you get into some trouble. If you've got a felony, you might as well consider it done. You're not working. Not anywhere that's going to pay you anything. So let's say even if you do get a job at McDonald's and you work for $8 an hour, 40 hours a week, over the course of the month, you are going to generate, over the course of a month, working for $8 an hour, 40 hours a week, so we're talking full-time. You're working full-time at McDonald's. You are going to generate $1,280. Now that is your gross, not your net. By the time that they take out your insurance that is mandatory now, take out all of your taxes, you'll probably walk away with somewhere in the range of about, let's ballpark it for, you might make $700, really. I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're only going to make about between $700 and $800. Because I know myself, if they did not tax me so hard, they take about $600 from me in taxes alone. So, well, I guess $600 total is what comes out of my check. I would say it's closer to $500 that Uncle Sam gets, and my insurance gets about $100, something like that a month. But I mean, even if you ballpark it somewhere in there, you're still, yeah, you're only gonna make like very maximum $800 working at $8 an hour, 40 hours a week. So let's say you make that $800 and you work all year, you are only going to make $10,000 for the entire year working full-time at McDonald's. Now, back to my original point. I was watching The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and we've got some wonderful people on there. Of course, Fox News, the most slanderous, slimy fucking bastards that ever did crawl out of a news center. Stuart Varney. They quoted him probably 50 times last night, and every time that I heard him talk or heard his name, I immediately was enthralled with rage. Some of the facts that he wanted to throw out for the people within poverty blew my fucking mind. Okay, number one fact. Many of these families have computers, cell phones, TVs, and more. You can buy a cell phone. Actually, I've got a pretty nice Android phone. I pay $35 a month for my actual service. I bought this phone at Best Buy for $45. That is not a big fucking deal if you got a cell phone. A TV. I just bought 2 monitors, which are generally more expensive than just a cheap. Actually, I got a cheap TV. I got a Westinghouse for $79, and it is a 24-inch. Not that expensive. Computers. You can buy a computer for close to nothing. It might not run very well, and it might be a slow piece of shit, but you can buy it. So all those points, invalid. His second remark. 99.6% of the poor have a refrigerator. That is fucking absurd. A refrigerator is a necessity. If you do not have a refrigerator, you cannot buy groceries of things that are any form of perishable. You can't have milk, cheese, butter. You can't have any sort of a meat because it's going to go bad within a couple of hours. So you might as well, if you're poor, and actually I feel really bad for the 0.4% that do not have a refrigerator, because you can't have beef, chicken, fish, turkey, milk, cheese, butter. Really all you can have is shit out of a can. You can have tuna fish, or chicken in a can, or corned beef in a can, or soup that's already made. His next remark, 81.4% of the poor have a microwave. Well, let me hop back here. Refrigerator. The refrigerator is a fucking necessity, as was previously stated. Also, I frequently go into Goodwill to drop off clothes. I'll outgrow shit, or like, say wintertime rolls around, some of my summer stuff I'm going to take in, and vice versa. It just rolled around to summer, I just went and took a bunch of winter clothes in, that way they'll have them for next year. Well, while I'm in there, I may look at some things, see if there's, lamps, end tables, shit like that. It's stuff you can use, you can clean up, you don't have to worry about where it's been. I saw a refrigerator in Goodwill for like $60. So at that point, it's not that expensive. But on his microwaves, 81.4% have a microwave. A microwave, depending on what you go with, can be anywhere in the range of about $49.99 and like $300. But we're talking the poor, we're going to be down on that $50 level. Completely affordable. It might take you a couple weeks to save up for it, whatever. But totally possible to have a microwave and still be legally poor. He goes on to say that poor families are not what they used to be. When you look at the actual living conditions of 43 million people that the census say are poor, you see that they in fact have all of these modern conveniences. So we have 43 million people that live in a household making less than $22,000 a year. I myself don't make quite $22,000 a year that I get to take home. So I guess they probably do it for your gross. So I may be a slim margin over the poverty line, but it's not by a whole hell of a lot. So to hop onto that, there are 43 million people that are down below that line. That's just ridiculous to me. That 43 million, that would be the bottom 50% of the nation. Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, they'd be under the 20th percentile tax, is technically where the poverty line is. So I don't know if they're basing it just off of their own numbers or what census they're going off of, because I just pulled up the 2010 census. I couldn't find anything for 2014, but the 2010 census shows that the poverty line falls anything under the 20th percentile. Combined of everybody in the census within the 20th percentile would have been, combined income of all households was $315,570,000. On the census were 23,242,000 households, which would make the average household income for anyone under the poverty line of $13,577. Now, this is a household. This is not a person. This is for 4 people in a household. So we're basing this off of the good old American dream. You got 2 parents, 2 children. So that means that the parents, either one is working a job to make about $14K a year, or you've got 2 working to make about $7,000 a year. That's just barely scraping it by, especially when, hell, I remember there was I might have to actually pull up the updated form, but when I was in high school, so we're looking 7-8 years ago, they said that the average cost of raising a child was $18,000 a year. So if you've got 2 kids and you make $14,000 a year combined, you aren't scraping by with shit. That's when you have to get some sort of government assistance, which I think is totally fine. Now, there are some cases where people may milk the system or work the system for their own benefit, but there are some that genuinely do need the help. With that being said, the top 2% of earners make a combined $1.4 trillion. On this census, there were only 2.8 million households, and the average household income for people making $250,000 or more was $500,000, just in the top 2% alone. Now, the bottom 50% combined made $315 billion. The top 2% combined made $1.4 trillion. They made 3 times as much money, 23 million and 2 million. So even if we say that there was 10 times as many people in the poor percent, 20th percentile, that makes sense, because my own was going over the 20th percentile. 23 million, 2.8 million in the top 2%. And they made more than triple the amount with 10% as many people to be searched over. If they raised taxes on the top 2%, and this was something that was proposed, would raise $700 billion over the course of 10 years. Or, to put it into perspective, if you took half of everything the bottom 50% made in this country, the entire country, if you took the bottom 50% and took half of everybody's money, would only equal $700 billion. So you could tax the top 2%, or cut half of the money, period, from the bottom half of the entire nation to make it up. So now we're taking the poverty line and dropping it from $22,000 to $11,000 for a family of 4, giving you about $2,500 a year to live on per person. I don't have a problem with people having money. I think that's great. If you're successful and you've worked hard and you make a shit ton of money, that's great. I'm fucking happy for you. But when you are generally, as far as poverty goes, you're born into it. It's not like, you had a great upbringing and then one day you just go poor. I mean, there are some gambling addictions and things like that where you might have a shitload of money and blow it all one day. But most generally, it's because you were born in a shitty area. You didn't go to a very good school. You didn't have that great of an education after school. And you work minimum wage jobs your whole life and the people in poverty are more likely to get pregnant early, battle with, crime, battle with addiction, things like that, which only make it worse. When the Business Insider distribution of wealth, they ran their own census, so to speak. The bottom half of the country only gets, so I'm talking 50%. 50% of the U.S. only accounts for 2.5% of all of the wealth for the U.S. The 50th to the 90th percentile make up for about 26%. The 90th to 99th make up for 37.7%. And the top 1% of earners account for 33.8%. So you're telling me that 33% of this country, of all the money it has generated, is going to 1% of the people, and only 2.5% is going to half of the entire country. This is where things really start to, really start to get in my head, and more or less it just pisses me off. Especially some of the remarks. The refrigerator and the microwave thing, that's fucking ridiculous. If you can't have a refrigerator or a microwave, microwave might not be essential, but a refrigerator is. You have to have a refrigerator if you plan on buying groceries and storing them so they don't go bad within 13, 14 hours. $700 billion in 10 years. And the rich are getting mad about a remark of President Obama, or a few remarks rather. Stuart Varney says, "Soak the rich, it's their fault." He invoked the corporate jet class, so that's a whole new category of people to demonize, right? Demonizing the rich as evil, as lazy, as inheritors of their wealth. He's saying they are fat cats. It's disappointing. It's class warfare. It's the kind of language that you would not expect from a world leader, that you would expect from a world leader of a third world country, not the President of the United States. It's true because the United States of America is not a third world country by any measure, except perhaps income equality. The United States actually registers on the chart of countries by income equality as number 64. We are worse than the Ivory Coast, Cameroon. We are just barely above Uruguay. Nepal, Philippines, Rwanda, Malaysia, Mozambique, we are just barely over them. We are underneath Iran. We are underneath Iraq. It is absolutely pitiful. We are supposed to be the greatest country in the world. We are the biggest power in the world. There's no one on the face of this planet that wants to fuck with the United States. And we are 64th from the top. and income equality. Because the top 2% of people are too worried about stuffing their pockets full, thinking that they can take it to the fucking grave. I got news for you. You can't. There's no point in anyone to need that much money. The average income of a CEO... Let's see, where was we had it here. Average CEO pay as based on by the 2010 U.S. Census. 500 companies, $8.4 million is the average CEO pay. The top 50 layoff leaders, the average would be $11.977 million. So we're talking $12 million a year that someone's making. Now, that breaks up into that top 2%, where technically the average income is only about $500,000. Because there are more people that make only $250,000 than people that make $25 million. Now, there are some that actually do right with their money, that donates to charities, start their own charities, send money to foundations, foreign countries, feed the hungry, things like that. That's wonderful. I'm, very pleased when I see stuff like that. But when you have people that are so worried about giving up a little bit, just a tiny bit of their money, to be able to give it to, more towards taxes, that's just blows my fucking mind. That you would rather take half of the money of the entire year from, someone that only makes $20,000. Yep, just take 10 grand from them, and I won't pay any more extra taxes. It's getting to be, where we're almost living in the Middle Ages again. We've got kings up at the top, sitting on their thrones, making all kinds of fucking money. And then you got half of the nation, just the peasants, just walking around, working for fucking food, working for crumbs of something that they apparently don't deserve. Now there are some, like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett throws money everywhere. He does not give two shits about his money. He's doing fine. He doesn't mind. But there are some things that I was reading up on Warren Buffett about. Let's see here. A quote from Warren Buffett in 2010, it would have been January 21st, 2010. I pay a lower tax rate on much of my own income tax than my cleaning lady does. That is absurd. How someone with that much money can pay less, as a percentage anyway, on taxes than the lady cleaning his toilets. Alright guys, I am back. Had to take a little break. Got a little too irritated. Need to get myself some good old-fashioned nicotine. Maybe unprofessional or whatever, but I'm just a blue-collar worker. So I'm not a businessman. I'm not a doctor, a lawyer. I'm definitely not a politician. I wouldn't shame myself with calling myself a U.S. politician. Some of the most shady fucking people on the planet, and make up for a lot of the reason that we don't have enough money funneling into government itself, because they're too worried about what perks or benefits they can get from being in a position of power or a position of importance. So there are a few things that they could change. One being, federal employees do not have to pay for parking. So if they would just set up a regular parking fee, whether it be a yearly fee and say, hey, y'all pay X amount a year, or they set up regular, like meters, like most of the fucking country has, we could easily get $140 million, $160 million in revenue just from parking lots having to be paid for and nothing else changing. Over the course of a decade, I mean, we're talking quite a bit of money to knock off part of the deficit. Now, I mean, there are certain things. I understand that the president has to be protected and has to be, taken care of, so to speak. But he did not have to waste $1.1 million on a luxury, airliner. Fly around in this $1 million machine. Now, there are some points that I've seen being made, or not points, but comments rather, about things that we could cut to save money. One being by, I know that I'm going to fuck this up because I'm no linguist. Andrea Tantaros, January 4th of 2011, states, you got to start somewhere. Even when we talk about NPR, National Public Radio, there's $1 million. It's a start, but it's still $1 million. So when you cut it, it's just $1 million. But when you are talking about taxes, we could be generating $700 billion. So all we'd have to do is raise the $700 billion is to cut 700,000 national public radio stations. So we'd just shut down all radio. We wouldn't have any more radio at all. And actually, I don't know that we even have that many national public radio stations or anything associated with NPR that is government funded that makes that much money, or takes that much money rather. Now, as I previously quoted earlier, Warren Buffett seems to be, as far as the wealthy go, seems to be a great guy. Obviously, I don't know him personally. He's just a fucking billionaire. But a quote from Neil Cavuto in 8/15/11, so August 15th, on Warren Buffett, writing how the rich should pay more taxes, but saying not a word about half of the American households that pay no income taxes at all. So, once again, as previously was stated, half of American households only account for 2.5% of the wealth in the entire nation. Whereas the top 1% counts for 34% of the distribution of national wealth. So we're talking about someone not paying, or half the country not paying taxes, essentially. Even if the bottom half didn't pay any taxes and they only taxed the other 97.5%, the country would still do fine, because all the people in the 50th percentile down don't account for enough of the national distribution of wealth. So where he gets this quote is beyond me. He goes on to say, before you start demanding one group pay more, maybe get everyone to put some skin in the game. I can understand that. Everyone should have to pay some form of tax. However, if you only make, let's go back to our McDonald's employee. If you only make 10.8 a year, that's 10.8 thousand a year before, or no, that'd be after your taxes. So your take home, about 11 grand a year. If you get taxed for 10%, which is fairly standard, you're going to be losing, another $1,100. So we're looking now that you're into just about $10,000 take home for the year. That same 10% on someone that makes $200,000, they're putting up $20,000 in, tax revenue, isn't that big of a deal. When you make jack diddly shit, it's a lot harder. I really don't understand how anyone could survive on $10,000 a year. I cannot fathom how someone can do it unless you are in government funded housing, which is apparently a big fucking deal to all these rich folks, or get government assistance, whether it be a welfare check, get food stamps, or get some of the assistance with like the Obama phone, free Obama health care, all this kind of stuff. Even with all of that, you are still barely going to get by just by yourself. Much less, there are plenty of single mothers out there that may only make that $10,000 to $12,000 and have government assistance, but you can't raise a child on anything less than about 18 grand a year. So right there, we're already talking $6,000 more a year than what you are actually generating in revenue you would have to pay out to raise your child properly. So let's say even they wrote off, the hospital gets to write off free health care. So they take your baby in, they do everything, you have your child, it's all comped by the hospital, which never happens. They always make you pay something. Then doctor visits are all comped by the doctors, which doesn't happen. You still have to pay something. And you get the welfare check or food stamps to pay for diapers and formula. You are still not going to be able to make it on $10,000 to $12,000 a year. It is not humanly possible. And for someone that makes over $1 million a year and goes around so boastfully spending their money and throwing it on the most irrelevant, stupid shit that they could possibly buy, and complaining about having to pay a little more in taxes. Okay, so here are some of the quotes that really, really started to irritate me. Quote from Neil Bortz on July 6th of 2011. It is all-out war on the productive class in our society for the benefit of the moocher class. John Stossel in 10/12 of 2010, The Makers and the Takers. Bill O'Reilly, the same day, 10/12 of 2010, They want to take it from somebody else. Laura Ingraham, 6/29 of 2011, Everyone's jumping in the wagon, no one wants to pull. Neil Bortz again, 6/22 of 11, Parasites we have out there depending on the government. That's one of those that makes me really, really think that the more than half of the country, as considered by Neil Bortz, are leeches. That they're just parasites wanting to suck the blood right out of the fucking government funding. But I don't know what his net value is. I'm going to say that he probably makes a fair amount of money. Anyone that's on Fox News is probably making a shit ton of money because it's nothing but a bunch of slanderous, it's just fucking lies. Fox News just says whatever they want and it's news. There's no research and no one keeps up to date with what they're doing. Stuart Varney is the biggest defender of the poor and offender of the poor. He goes on to say that Fox News is not here to make fun or shame the poor. That they don't think the poor are bad people, and they don't think that they are parasitic. In another interview about, 30 days later, he says, actually he's questioned as he goes on about his rant, and the interviewer asks him, you're not here to make fun of or be mean to the poor, and his response is, actually I am here to be mean to the poor. When you make that much money and it is that big of a deal to you that you may have to pay just a tiny bit more to help benefit the country of which you live, that is supposed to be the absolute best country in the world, and you are that upset, you can take yourself and whatever money that you think you're making, take off to a fucking third world where the millionaires sit at the top of the perch and they don't have to worry about anybody else. Go ahead, fucking Saddam Hussein, go build yourself a goddamn gold castle somewhere. We don't need your kind of people here. If that's the way that you want to act, you can go somewhere else. This is supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, not the land of the greedy. We left, well, I can't say we, I'm from Ireland. My family came here about 100 years ago looking for better opportunities. It was not there in Ireland. Originally, the English left England because they got tired of the poor being taxed too highly and the rich not being taxed at all, and having no representation of their taxes. So they came to America, said, we're going to start a new country. This is ours, and we won't have to worry about all these money problems. And here we are, 250 years later, just about, and just as bad of money problems that we were when we left England. What it's coming down to is that our elected officials take an oath to uphold the Constitution on which this country was founded. The problem being there that we elect officials that are supposed to make the best decisions for us. If half of the country is making this very, very tiny percentage of the money, and we're paying all of the taxes, how is it that our elected officials are voting in favor of us? We are the majority shareholders of this country. We hold as close to more than half as we can, but we still have zero say in what goes on. When we're looking at someone's rhetoric for when they're running for any sort of government, elected official, whether it be senator, governor, mayor, president, congressman, House representative, no one is voting in favor of what is equal for everybody. People are voting what is in favor of benefiting them personally. If you are only going to run for office so you can make ungodly amounts of money and get your hands into more businesses to help yourself out, do the country a favor, and go somewhere else. We don't need you here. And in the long run, the American Revolution was not that long ago. And I feel that if things continue on the path that they are now, it won't be very long until it happens again. I only hope that if it does, or when it does happen, someone may learn from what has gone on, and they may decide, hey, let's actually follow out with what the forefathers actually stood upon, where everyone should be equal. You can't be equal when you draw the poverty line as being so low that you can physically not survive without help, and have people that make 100 million times as much as that poverty level and think that there's any form of equality at all. There needs to be a new standard set for a difference between the rich and the poor, the amount of tax to be paid, and what kind of government assistance will be had. What is the point of having a welfare system if no one can actually rely on having a welfare system? It is in place for those who are truly in need of it, but when someone is truly in need and tries to use it, the rich get upset about it or get offended, thinking that someone is lazy. I don't know how lazy you can be if you work 40 hours a week and you still don't make enough money to survive. But you could be sitting in an office doing absolutely nothing but telling people what to do, playing on your phone, texting. I see more political figures using Twitter than I do, and I'm fairly active. How can that be your job and you consider the lower class to be lazy? It's something that we need to think about as individuals and something that we need to think about as a country. And we need to reach level ground before things get out of hand. It's already started in a bunch of different states and cities where people are rioting. And we can say it was because of white on black violence. That is not the case. It is on the grounds of government versus the poor violence. It's something to think about, America.